Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My guest today, Christopher Armstrong Stevenson. If you're looking on behind the scenes, BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, or YouTube video, you see me using air quotes, and I'm doing that for a reason. We'll have Christopher explain why, the Armstrong Stevenson thing. Have at it.
All right, so my legal last name is Stevenson, but I go by my middle name Armstrong because it's I don't know, it's kind of like become like a thing over the last few years because I'm named after my dad's best friend who is an ex-Navy SEAL who is Christopher Armstrong. So that's kind of where it comes from.
Cool. I like that. And yeah, my full name is Joseph Martin Edward Leonard. So a lot of people call me Martin. It's on my license plate, Martyn, which is now going to confuse some people because my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book, there is a Martin, Martin, which is how my middle legal name is indeed spelled. But it has nothing to do with me. It's a fictional character. I just used that name. But now that everybody's thoroughly confused, let's have you give us your background.
All right, so I'm 18 years old. I live in Florida in Daytona Beach, and currently, I used to live in North Carolina. That's where I like it. I like it up in the mountains. The mountains are good. But yeah, so I'm going to college right now for engineering science, which is not really what I want to do, but I do like e-commerce, a little bit of social media stuff. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get into, like the whole online business, and maybe even potentially starting a podcast of my own one day, because this stuff is fun. I enjoy this stuff.
That's great. You've got to get my fourth internationally available book, Podcasting Quick Start Guide. And then after that helps you to get your podcast going, you will want to write a book. I will want to see a book from you. My second international book, How to Write a Book and Get It Published, hints, tips, and techniques. So, in fact, after this show is over, when we're offline, I'll get your address. I'll send you a copy of both those books. But at any rate, and I say at any rate because it's an ongoing gag here about me maybe renaming the show to At Any Rate, because that's actually a good name for a podcast. Heck, I'll let you have it if you want to use it. At Any Rate is a great podcast name, and I jokingly keep saying it over and over and over during this show now. So it's become an ongoing running gag. You know, most podcasters, you got to avoid the ahs and the ums while you're gathering your thoughts. And then I, for some reason, started doing At Any Rate. So now it's become an ongoing running gag here. So indeed, at any rate, I was very encouraged to see you becoming active, and that will be great. I would look forward to you doing a podcast. And if you're willing to have guests, I would love to be your first guest. But indeed, at any rate, I wanted to bring you on very much because of your age, right? I'm 62. In fact, I have a friend, TheLibertyBeacon.com, where my show has corresponding correlating articles with my Saturday show drops. Roger Landry over there does a podcast called Boomer and Zoomer. He's my age, so he teamed up with somebody younger to do a Zoomer and Boomer show to give both the young and old perspective. So exactly why I want to have you on, to give that youth perspective. Uh, are you politically active in a political party or anything like that currently?
Yes, I'm so part of the Republican Party. That was what I signed, what I put on my when I went to get my driver's license. And I get a lot of my information. Like my dad, he listens to the Blaze Media podcast. He listens to them all the time. So I get a lot of my stuff from him and them, and so that's honestly where most of it's come from. My dad is like, he's taught me like everything.
Yeah, Glenn Beck. Love Glenn Beck. I recently had a show uh, about social media. That's not what I was meant to refer to, though. But a couple shows ago, I don't remember which one it was, I mentioned Glenn Beck. You know, there's good and bad and ugly on virtually any site, any channel you tune into. It's like, remember, Glenn Beck was on CNN at one time, right? I used to watch
Yeah,
Glenn Beck when he was on CNN before he went to Fox and now created The Blaze. I used to watch him on CNN all the time. There's nothing worth watching there anymore, but that's a whole other episode. Because I have written on that. I mean, the media, as I hashtag it, ENEME, and then lowercase DIA. They are left biased media. They are almost all, except for like The Blaze or Newsmax and OAN, left wing propaganda. They become part fascocrats, as they call them, apparatchiks. You know, they are no different than Pravda used to be in Russia.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I've seen a lot of the stuff like with the BBC actually. I follow them a bit closely, and I've seen some of the stuff that they've done. Like they've really like gone way downhill. That I remember at one point a while back they had some incident with one of their employees was, I believe he was engaging in with a minor, and they like completely like hid his name, hid who he was, protects him completely, but they're out here trying to expose other like influencers who are trying to spread the truth, and they're trying to call them out for straight up lies.
Yeah, I saw that story. I know who you're talking. I don't know the name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. Right. I mean, the left has become the protectorate of pedophiles. I mean,
Mhm.
there's just no way around it anymore. There's just all this, the LGB part of the equation has a big problem with the TQ part of the equation. I have gay and lesbian friends. They are part of the tolerance and acceptance crowd. They know my Christian position on traditional marriage. They also know that I was willing to support civil unions to give them legal protections, but not destroy traditional marriage. We are great friends. We understand where each other comes from. And I abide by Matthew 7. Condemn not, lest ye be condemned. I don't condone your lifestyle. They understand that, but I am not going to condemn you. That is for the Lord. Final judgment is for the Lord. But they are in that LGB part, indeed not fond of the TQ part. That is indeed what I coined also terms gaytivists engaging in gaytivism. They are about pedophilia and grooming and recruitment, not the born this way tolerance and acceptance of the past. They literally want to recruit people into the lifestyle. Big difference between the two, right? the log cabin Republicans. No problem with them whatsoever. Plenty of gays and lesbians I know are Republicans. No
Yeah.
problem. This is not about being homophobic. I'm sure you feel probably the same.
I do, yeah. It's like I've known some gay people in the past who have been like just really actually amazing people. They've been fine with me being me. I've been fine with them being them because they weren't like so just in,
Gaytivists. They
yeah.
weren't gaytivists.
Yeah, they weren't so gaytivists about who they were. They're like, yeah, I'm just this is me, but it's not my personality, it's not my lifestyle. And with the gaytivists, they I mean, they come for our children because they can't have children of their own. So how are they going to keep their movement going unless they let us put the work into our children, spend the money on them, raise them, have them, all this good stuff, and then they just that's what they do. They come along and then they start trying to put the propaganda and all of the lies into their head and try and change who they are and make them into something that they're not. Try to confuse them.
Yeah,
Add to the scheme.
yeah, it's become a leftist fascocrats part of their fabric, part of their coalition about destroying Western culture. I have an episode. The issue is never the issue. And that's the case. You know, that's been around long before me about Marxist revolution. The issue is never the issue. It's what and how you can use any issue to gain power for yourself. It's all about power and control. And the minute they have full, like Russia or China, one party rule, all you useful idiots will be kicked to the curb because you're no longer needed. And they can't figure that out.
Exactly. It's like it reminds me of the whole like abortion thing back when that was around and they were trying to legalize it up to the full 9 months. And then you have to stop and think about that in terms of like if they're willing to murder a like a newly born baby because it's just like it's irrelevant, it's not needed. When are they going to move on to the elderly who can't help themselves and need to be helped by somebody else? They would be eventually just waiting back.
I have an episode. By the time this airs, it will have dropped. But since we are recording, I'm looking at my calendar. Today is technically Wednesday, July the 3rd. Happy 4th of July, by the way, for tomorrow. So we're recording Wednesday, July the 3rd. I have a show called Self-Sufficiency, season 2, episode 58. That will be dropping Saturday, July the 27th. And that is a follow-up to a previous pro-life episode of just that, the slippery slope, right? They at first said we want it to be safe, legal, and rare. And most people were fine with that, okay? But of course, the slippery slope, look at where we are today. They demand even post-birth abortion.
Yeah.
The very thing that Kermit Gosnell is in prison in Pennsylvania for, New York, Michigan, and several other blue states have legalized. The baby is born via a botched abortion, no problem. Just put it off to the side and let it die. So it's no longer safe. More women are dying to abortions than that Roe v. Wade age cry of eliminate co-hanger abortions. More women die today due to botched abortions because they're not safe. Legal, well, most places it is legal. And that rare part, well, again, look at today. Most people are willing to compromise with the life of the mother, not the health. Health means mental health. That's the dodge. Oh my God, it would just upset my mental health. Therefore, let me kill my baby. No, if it's the life of the mother, which is like a 1 in a million chance that would happen, or rape or incest, all of those combined are less than 1% of all abortions performed. So, me as a Christian, knowing things aren't perfect on this planet, if we can limit it to life, rape, and incest, 99% of all abortions would then be illegal. Where do you stand on?
On
Yeah, are you willing to compromise a little?
oh,
Let me put it this way. I give it an L and that self sufficiency again. Yeah, because Ed Kroll brought up on the previous life episode about the eugenics. That's the next step, as you alluded to. Obamacare, socialized medicine, always about rationing. Well, we can give you a $20 fentanyl pill to end your life because we're not going to give you the $20,000 hip surgery. But yeah, an EMT or a cop comes upon a river that there are 4 children drowning. One at 9 o'clock, one at noon, 2 at 3 o'clock. What do? You save as many lives as you can, right? You don't say, well, I can't save all 4, so I'm not going to save any of them. That is just stupid. You go in after the 2 you know you can save, right?
yeah, like, and with that, yeah, with the whole compromising thing, I don't compromise with that kind of stuff because I just, it's absolutely abhorrent that people would do that in the first place. But I mean, it's, yeah, the slippery slope is genuinely, I don't know how people haven't caught on more to that that's how the way the world works. But we have to keep a strict and tight system and not be willing to make these sorts of sacrifices and kind of like, oh, it's just once. It's like with a cigarette, you know, just take one, and then next thing you know, lung cancer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
Well, that's the existential trap for us as Christians. We want to be 100% pro life all of the time. But like here in Michigan, we had a law on the books from ages ago that made abortion of any kind at any time for any reason completely illegal. But the left was able to get an abortion allowance bill anytime, any place, any reason, performed by anybody, and they sold it as a limited abortion bill. So it passed. And we in Michigan failed to get the 15-week heartbeat bill passed because a lot of people indeed said, no, if we can't get all abortions eliminated, they're going to let all kids be killed. And I don't get that. Would you vote for a 15-week heartbeat bill and save as many lives as possible, knowing you're not able to save them all? Or are you just willing to let the left pass their bill and more babies would be killed? That's the existential dilemma we have.
yeah, it's amazing. It's like horribly amazing, but yeah, no, I can't begin to think of compromising that stuff because with the stuff that I believe, with who I am, with how I was raised, I'm firm in what I believe. Now, there's certain things that my mind can be changed on, of course, but when it comes to certain things like abortion, it's just it's disgusting. Honestly, I wouldn't like even if I were to get myself into some kind of situation like that, which I wouldn't, but if I were to, then I mean, it's all about making you feel like, oh, I feel like I want the easy way out here. So that would be easier and better, but it's not about easy. It's not about how you feel. It's about doing what's right. It's about doing what's best for like what would Jesus do, you know? Like that kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to turn this whole show into about abortion. But another kind of dilemma is there are a lot of Christians. Well, I don't know if it's a lot. I don't know what the percentage is. I might try to look that up at some point. actually oppose birth control. Now, I absolutely certainly oppose the morning after pill that the conception has already occurred. But if there's a contraception pill that can prevent the fertilization and therefore that spark of life, then that to me is an alternative to promote, because abortion is unnecessary if you pay attention and take contraception methods, or a condom. You take precautions before before the term they use, reproductive rights, right? That's a farce. If you take precautions to prevent the conception, reproduction doesn't happen. Once the conception occurs, your reproductive rights are over. That's happened. But if you take contraception, there's no need for the abortion. But they want to kill babies as 6-week, 10-week, 6-month-old babies as a form of birth control instead. Where do you stand on the contraception thing?
With that stuff, that's where it gets a little bit difficult, because it can be so easily justified to make that stuff seem like, oh, well, it's just like, barely even seems like it's a thing even. But with that stuff, I think that could be a big part of where the slippery slope could start. So if that's where it starts, and if it leads into what we have with the Roe versus Wade, with all the abortion laws that were around, then it's not a good idea. I don't think that we should begin promoting that kind of stuff, and it's a shame that we have. But
some indeed would argue that began that slippery slope. I mean, I'm not arguing one way or the other here. I'm just, putting out the food for thought. Indeed, I mean, everyone has to draw their line somewhere. For me, a majority of my life, I have indeed been an absolutist, like you're promoting, that either we must end all abortions. But then I came up with that analogy. You come upon a lake. If you were a cop and you decide to not go in that lake to save the 2 because you can't save all 4, I would want you prosecuted for dereliction of duty. So that's where I come from today, but indeed why I wanted you on, to give the young versus older perspective, because I am seeing this. I'm part of Upper Downriver, Michigan Right to Life here, and there was just an oratory contest where we have high schoolers come and speak about their pro-life position and why. And we are indeed seeing a generational shift. In fact, I've done a show on that. Let the left keep pushing. A generational shift is occurring. Younger people are becoming far more staunch conservatives than I was when I was younger. I'm moderating a bit, but our younger people have been pushed. The pendulum is swinging. Are you seeing that among your peers, that indeed more, despite the leftist attempt at indoctrination, more people your age are indeed being conservative and, or as I coin now, ChristiTutionalists?
absolutely, yeah. Like especially among my friends, like they're all similar to me with my activisms, with my beliefs, that kind of stuff. But no, just in general, what I've seen, I was homeschooled for most of my life, but I took a year in public school, and whenever I went there, there is definitely a lot of the leftist kids, but I think that the conservatives were actually a bit more dominant there, which was surprising to see. But yeah, the kids are. I've seen some of them change from leftist to the right. I've seen them change like that, and so I think it's a big part of it is because of how much the activism has grown and with how forceful they are pushing some kind of agenda. I think that the kids of this generation, a lot of them actually are smart enough to wake up and look around them and see what's really going on, which I before I went to public high school for a year, I didn't actually think that was a possibility. But sure enough, yeah, it was pretty amazing, and I still have some really good friends who Christian, conservative, all that good stuff.
Yeah, as I say, thankfully, more are awakening from their woke stupor. And indeed, the more the left keeps pushing, the more ridiculous, the further down that slope that we warned was the slippery slope that was coming to where we are today. They didn't listen. I can't say you didn't listen. You weren't here. Right? I've been talking about this stuff for 5 decades now, ever since I was in high school in the 70s. The slippery slope. This is where we're heading. People did not listen, would not listen, thought the Democrats were still the party of JFK. No, they are not.
Yeah, I've seen a video actually. It was an old interview from JFK. He was talking about he wanted a better and stronger America. He wanted like the bare minimum push-ups for every American to be 16, and it's at like most people struggle to do like 5 now. So it's absolutely nothing like how JFK was. Not anymore.
Yeah, no, JFK today would absolutely be a conservative Republican. He would be a Christitutionalist, our first Catholic president. And I was born and raised Catholic. But like I say on this show, this is not about Catholicism or Presbyterianism or Lutheranism or Methodist or any of the brands or flavors. It's about what we can come together under Christ in agreement on. Like I talk about, I'll get your thoughts on the rapture here, but before I do, I want to say, doesn't matter to me if it's going to happen or not. And the reason I say that is it's not on my terms or my time, it's God's terms and God's time. So let him worry about that. And that, if it happens, is going to be in the future. We've got too much to worry about in the here and now. Now, with having said that, if you want to state your beliefs in the rapture or not, you can, or if you want to, whatever you'd like to say on that.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with talking about that stuff, and I believe personally, I believe that it is going to happen, and my church preaches about it a lot. So I get to hear a lot of scriptures about it, and like prophecies coming true, and all the ins and outs about it. But no, I think I hear that there people are talking about it's going to happen soon, and a lot of the prophecies have been fulfilled. But personally, I mean, I can't confirm or deny whatever God's planning. All I know is that, well, I know where I'm going when I die, so it's all the same to me whether it happens.
Yeah, but what worries me is if Christians, like my book Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, there's a Tokyo chapter. It's not just about Islamic radicals. It's about all terrorism. The Om Shinrikyo Christian cult in Tokyo engaged in terrorism because they were a Christian cult that believed, like Muslim Shiites do, that it is their job to hasten Armageddon, to bring about the apocalypse, to hasten revelations, to bring Christ back sooner. What is your thing? I just dropped a piece today. Again, we're recording Wednesday, July the 3rd on beforeitsnews.com. In the news, things you may not have heard that are important. And the opening line is the end nigh? And immediately below that is an image of the book of Revelation. So yeah, is it tomorrow? Is it next week, next month, next year, next decade, or next century? Again, that is God's time to know, not ours. So you're not of that camp that thinks we should hasten Armageddon.
No, definitely not. Because at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It is God's time, and God, and only God the Father knows when it's going to happen. So us trying to take matters into our own hands and do it ourselves, it doesn't seem like a very good idea, especially with how the way that the Islamic people are doing it, because like I mean, blowing up buildings, killing Jews, all the stuff that they do over in the Middle East. There was a guy who was sentenced to death in Pakistan recently for spreading hateful content, and yeah, it's just become a mess. But I don't know. They call themselves the religion of peace, and
Seems to be anything but. Now,
yeah,
again, now my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, goes into this. We're not talking all Muslims, right? Dr.
no,
Zuhdi
definitely not.
Jasser wrote a book called Reform, The Battle for the Soul of Islam, and he's running in Arizona for Congress as a Republican. I fully support him. I was on a black Muslim female show discussing my book. She gets it. Of course, people try to call me Islamophobic, but obviously they've not read the book. We're not talking all Muslims here, and but look at history. It is said that only 7 to 10% of Germans, and I'm of German heritage, our family escaped World War I times, so weren't there for World War II. I no doubt there might have been some family left. I have no idea where they were and things, but 7 to 10% only Germans were Nazis. And look how that turned out. So if only 10% of Muslims are Gijas, as I call them, global Islamic jihadist interim army soldiers, if only 10% of Muslims are Gijas, that's a problem. There is a problem. The world is on fire because of it. But again, terror strikes not only about Islamic terror, about all terrorism. Again, went out of my way to make that point. The Om Shinryoku Christian cult who believe like Shia Muslims that doing evil deeds was okay because it might hasten the return of Christ. And nowhere of anything I've seen Christ say did he say that we should do that. So I'm with you. It's not proper. It's not right. It's not smart. We are to write 2 Chronicles 7:14. I'll get your reaction on that. Pray and turn from wicked ways. I shall hear and heal your land. Well, pray, I got to show, is prayer alone enough? No, it's not. And turn from your wicked ways. It says right there in that passage, we are to try to turn our nation from its wicked ways. We are to act, not just pray. We must act, and then God will help. Not wave a magic wand. We do, he will help. Your thoughts?
I think absolutely, yeah. That reminds me of Proverbs 3, where it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." Like that's basically just saying, let God do His work and just trust in Him that He's gonna do His job right. So we should just play our parts, listen for Him, wait for Him to tell us what to do, and not try to take over and do what God is supposed to be doing, because He's got it all figured out, unlike us. And there's just no changing that. We can't play
Right.
God.
Well,
It's
they both play off each other. Exactly what you. like I said, it's God's time. We know what's coming. We know what's going to happen. But at the same time, he tells us to try to turn our nation from the wicked ways so revelation doesn't have to come tomorrow, but hopefully next century. Right? Are we on the same page there? So we are to try to prevent everything from, quote unquote, going to hell in a handbasket, or we are complicit in the destruction. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because if God calls you to do something, then you go do it. You're doing what He's told you to do, and that's good. So, but we shouldn't be trying to hasten the process of Jesus coming back. We should be just listening to what God says and then just carrying it out, letting Him take care of all the other stuff that we don't know, that we don't see, and just waiting on His time.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. I did make a note because I did forget I wanted to bring up. I think it explains a lot. And in my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, I also talk about homeschooling. I mean, not everybody can do that. Obviously, if you can, you should. But if you can't, you at least need to set aside time at night to know what's going on in your schools and reinforce the positive and counteract the negative, right? So I think homeschooling explains a lot of why you are who you are today. And I think you've already agreed, but you agree that public schools can be okay as long as you're paying attention, not just letting them be your child's babysitter.
Exactly. Yeah. No. With because what they try to do is they want like both parents working so that school can raise the kids. So that's why I'm happy that I was homeschooled because I had a parent home to help teach me school, and then also along with that like religious stuff and political beliefs, what's going on in the world, other stuff. Like my parents got to raise me as their kid. I'm not the child of the government. I wasn't raised by public school, and I'm so thankful that I got to do homeschooling because I mean, the program that we did is definitely a lot more challenging than public school. So I have the opportunity to be a bit more advanced in my school skills, and yeah, and it was
You were taught to be able to think, not what to think. And you've come to your own conclusions based on the evidence presented to you. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but I'm thinking you're going to agree with this next statement. It's like Hillary Clinton, and it takes a village. It takes a village is biblical in the community sense. Community is biblical volunteerism. It is biblical charity to be our brother's keeper. Hitler's it takes a village is Nazism, wards of the state, separation from church to state, not separation of church to state, as Jefferson wrote about in his letters. It's not in our founding documents. But indeed, communism is not biblical. Community is. Communism isn't voluntary, it's forced. It isn't charity, it's theft through redistribution of taxes. Your thoughts?
I mean, exactly right. That nails it right on the spot. And yeah, communism, I just look at the way that the communist countries work. You see that they're all in shambles, and people will go around saying they're like, oh, we haven't done it right. Same with socialism, just, oh, we haven't done it right. We have to try it this way and then it's going to work better. But every time they try these systems and these ways, it always ends up with the top 1% in power. The rest of the 99% are starving, being killed in the streets by each other for food. It's chaotic. It's hell. It's not how we were intended to be.
Right. As Abraham Lincoln said, you cannot lift others up by tearing others down. And when you give things to people that they didn't merit, they didn't earn in any way, they don't appreciate it. That's why ghettos didn't work. You give somebody the housing completely for free, they didn't earn it, they don't respect it, it falls into disrepair because they've got no pride or respect in where they're living because they didn't earn it. They're paying nothing on it. It's like the Bradford colony. I have no doubt in your homeschooling you learned about the Mayflower Compact.
Yes.
But did they teach you that it was actually a communist compact? That's why the left likes teaching it as history without the full story. The Bradford Colony Mayflower Compact was a commonwealth. Everyone owned equally, everyone shared equally. And over time, more people decided, I'm not going to pull the cart, I'm going to get in the cart. The same failing of socialism and communism everywhere. So you didn't have to learn socialism and communism was a failure due to Marx, Lenin, Mao, Stalin, Che, Castro, what's going on in Venezuela now. Learn from our own history. Communism failed here. Bradford instituted private property, personal freedoms and responsibilities. Everything our nation was then gone on to be founded on. Have you ever heard the Mayflower Compact talked about in that reality before?
I actually don't think I have. It's been a while, but no, I don't recall that.
But it makes sense now that, as Paul Harvey would say, hearing the rest of the story matters.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I like what you said about how, like, if you're just given housing or something, if you haven't earned it, if you haven't worked for it, that it just all falls apart. I really like that because it's so true. I know for a fact that certain things that my parents have given me while growing up, I don't have the same respect for it as I do the things that I like buy everything for myself. I do everything for myself pretty much. And I take care of the things that I've worked for. And it's a big part of the problem here is that nobody wants to work. They're just waiting on a stimulus check. They're waiting on somebody else to go do the work for them. And so that's a big part of why we have fallen apart as a country.
Amen. And thank you for that admission. This is the importance of having the younger, older perspective. That's why so many younger people are communists because they haven't bought a house. They haven't bought a car. They have things given to them because they are children and their parents are taking care of them. And as they get older, they think, why can't government be my mommy and daddy and I not have to work for anything? And it doesn't work. It's exactly right. When you're younger and you're given something, you don't necessarily respect it because now, as you're older and you're working and earning your own money and buying your own things, you have that much more respect for it and want it to last because your hard-earned pay went towards it. Like this house I'm in, I worked for it. So therefore I respect it and I engage in the upkeep so that it lasts. Right? I'm glad you see that difference because you're at that age of transition now going out into the real world, not having your parents to completely rely on. And hey, things ain't fair out there.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I feel like a lot of people have a hard time making that transition from being a kid into adulthood, especially with how reliant we are wanting the government to be mommy and daddy, like you said. And listen, I've never understood that because I enjoy working for what I want.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt you here, but and what I'm about to say is going to be controversial and it's going to upset a lot of people. Please hang in here with me. Don't have an immediate knee jerk emotional hysterical reaction, right? We got to use our brains. That's on the right. We are supposed to be thinkers and use our brains. The notion work sets you free, again, is a biblical concept. The Nazis, however, put it over their concentration camps. That wasn't work, that was slavery. Work sets you free. That's not slavery. Work gives you freedom to earn your own way and do what you wish with what you earn. Right? A big difference there. But people hear, a younger person might hear, work sets you free, and they think, you're repeating Nazi propaganda? No, I'm repeating a biblical tenet that the Nazis warped.
Exactly. It's the work is, it's required. It's needed. Like John Smith said back in Jamestown, if you don't work, you don't eat. So, because
they learned from Bradford Colony's failures, right? And there's the Bible. I forget exactly the scripture, but there is a difference. We are to be each other's brother's keeper and take care of widows and orphans, right? But you, as my brother, it's my duty as a Christian to be your keeper if you're unable to do for yourself versus those who are unwilling to do for themselves. That's in the Bible. Unable versus unwilling. I have no obligation to you whatsoever if you are a low-life piece of crap wanting to only ride in the cart if you're able to do for yourself. Like I myself, full disclosure, I'm on disability. So, and I don't like it. I don't like having to rely on disability, but I worked all those years, got sick, couldn't work anymore. I am unable versus unwilling. Major difference, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is a huge difference, and nobody really seems to understand that anymore because nobody wants to work. With me personally, I think I would rather starve to death working my butt off trying to make something of myself rather than sitting on the couch saying, oh, government, you get to own me. You get to run my life. Just pay my bills and feed me.
Oh, after we're done here, you really got to check out some of my past episodes. I've recently had one too called Slaves to State. You queued that up perfectly. Exactly what you said. People willing to be slaves to the state. So at any rate, we are now like almost 50 minutes in, and I try to keep my shows usually around 30 minutes because I call it today's twatter, now X, right? Attention span. Everybody wants to give me just the headline, though the headline can be misleading, all right? Give me a drive-by pot shot quote, which can be misleading. There are a lot of gray areas. We need to have detailed discussions, not just quick talking point sound bites. But if I go too much over 30 minutes, it will cost me viewers because of that twatter attention span of social media today. People want it in a short paragraph rather than delve into full, in-depth, go really down the rabbit hole. You see that amongst your peers, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, but it's gotten so bad that even like 3-minute long videos to people and
can't be bothered.
Yeah. Oh, 3 whole minutes. It's not 15 seconds. Can't watch it.
And thank you again for that admission of, I know that's not you, but unfortunately, too many of your peers, too many. I joke, and this is just a joke. Yeah, I call some the Y generation, as in, the letter Y to go with X and Z, but Y as in WHY. Why are you here? You're completely useless. It's just a joke. But indeed, a joke is good if it's based in reality. There is some truth in that. Some of these people are just useless mouth breathers, right? They just exist, and entitled attitude. I'm entitled to everything. You owe me everything just because I'm here.
Yeah, no, that is so very true, and I'm certainly happy that my parents spanked me as a child, because I we're not like.
Hey, thank you, another great admission. Amen. Right? Spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. Right? Spanking to the point of upset. I can't talk now. Too many times for like no reasons at all. Bad parenting. But yes, physical discipline has to come into play at times to get a point across. Some parents don't do it at all, and that's bad. Some parents do too much of it, and that's abusive. There's, again, what did I say about gray areas? We could have a whole hour discussion on spanking alone, right? So, so with that, I'll just say thank you, Christopher Armstrong Stevenson, for joining the ChristiTutionalist Politics. If people want to reach out to you, do you have a website, or you on Twitter, X, or Fascist Book, or Instagram?
I am on Instagram. My user is at Armstrong American.
Okay, I'm writing that down, at Armstrong American. I will add that into the show notes so people can find you and reach out. Thanks again for coming on. Take care. God bless. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at TheLibertyBeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show. I am Joseph M. Leonard, the host of ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast. Hoping you will tune in every weekend. Also hoping you will watch for the companion ChristiTutionalist Politics book, Politics from a Christian-based U.S. constitutionalist perspective. Thank you all. Take care. God bless.